Good evening, everybody. I am Cyrus Hojadi. Today I am right now making this video based on the news today that Mr. Steve Sisolak, the County Commissioner Chair of Clark County, wants to run for the governor of the state. Now, before I move on, I'm going to explain something shortly, briefly. I would like to thank Teresa Benitez and Elliot Anderson, assembly members, for their exciting phone call about housing prices and how the fact that they're being inflated. And Teresa Benitez, you explained a good reason why you get money from certain interests. And I certainly hope, based on what you told me, you actually do care about the people. But anyway, I think both of you should really look and see this video about this individual who's running for Steve Sisolak. Now, when I'm making this video, Mr. Sisolak, don't take all my words as 100% claims. These are largely assumptions, so I could be wrong, and if I get frustrated, I don't want you to think that we're starting a war or something like that, okay? But the problem is, based on my investigation about you, I am really not so delighted about the fact that you are running for governor. And the simple truth is, it's very simple. It seems like you are basically part of this crony establishment. Your ties with Reid, your policies, your track record that are going to be very similar with the establishment, more Sandoval policies. Basically, you seem to have some connections with the establishment that's part of all the corruption that's happening across the country and in some cases the world, believe it or not. And that's why I don't feel comfortable with you. And most importantly, your campaign contributions really proves it, believe it or not. So if you're an individual who's getting massive, not just a little bit, contributions from special interest groups, particularly real estate development and casino interests, well, hey, you know what? I'm not too comfortable about you becoming elected, all right? And I have to expose and confront about what is exactly going on. Now, I have actually seen you in person. Last time I saw you was last May at a county commissioners meeting, and I was raising the awareness about my concerns about housing overvaluation, potentially a bubble. And I'm going to have a video about that later on. And I spoke to, like I said, mentioned before, the assembly members about this issue, because I think this is the most important issue. And I saw you were rolling your eyeballs and moving your head around and probably thinking like, who is this guy? I guess that's what it seemed. And I guess it seems that you just don't like what I stand for. And that's fine. Okay? So I can pretty much see who you are and what you feel about me. But again, first of all, let's talk about what are the reasons why you're potentially running for governor. So basically, based on your campaign contributions, you have a lot of self-interest in mind with your buddies. And don't get me wrong, I think you've done some good things. I believe you spoke out against the gas tax increase. I remember the threat that you got from some firefighter that he wanted to give you on Facebook about like 7 years ago. But the thing is that your track record overall is not that pretty. Now let's talk about why are the possible reasons why you want to run for governor. Now, based on what I'm finding out, believe it or not, is the fact that you are very likely to be another extension of Brian Sandoval, despite the fact that you're from a different party. But that's how it is in a lot of cases when it comes to these policies, this process, is that you really get the illusion of choice. And it seems like you somehow just don't really have hardly any differences from Reid. In fact, Rory Reid wanted to run for governor for 2012, and Rory Reid actually had the same position and used it several years ago. So that's one of the things that you have to keep in mind. Now, again, let's give out one reason why you're running for governor, because you want to make sure that the stadium deal, which has a lot of opposition, gets through. And it's a stadium deal that, despite its benefits, it's not really pretty for the people. Now, you can say, well, somehow the hotel room guests are going to pay for it, but that comes at a cost, because now means that there's less money flowing to other tourist activities, and that's going to have a domino effect. Now, what about the effects of crime, infrastructure, more cops? What if the loan fails? Are somehow the people of the state are going to have to pay higher taxes, and then you are not going to tell what those taxes are going to be about? Ooh, you got to be aware about that, folks. You can't be so naive, all right? And I guess another reason why you want the stadium to be built is because you want people to be distracted from the real issues, from corruption, which is one of the reasons why people are so obsessed with media paparazzi nowadays, all right? So this stadium plan is not very, very popular. And I think that's one of the reasons why you are running for governor. So let's also look into other issues, about the master plan development near Red Rock. Well, a lot of people were not happy about it. And a lot of the people who seem to be left-leaning that basically could have supported you are probably not going to support you. All right? You turn out to be this pro-business type, which isn't really pretty when you think about it, as allowing that development to take place. Now, you make good points that it's property rights and all that stuff, and I respect you for doing that, but you know what? A lot of people are not happy with it. And the question is, how are you going to win? Probably you're going to win if there's a pretty crappy GOP candidate, which is likely going to happen, because maybe the special interests are not going to pump in a lot of money to his campaign. Okay? But here's the thing, though. You may get support from hijacked groups like the Culinary Workers Union, and maybe you can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to help you guys out. I'm a Democrat. You can come and vote for me and all that stuff, because that's a group that helped pimp for politicians like Harry Reid all those years. So that's what you're going to do. Now, my other question is for you, Mr. Sisolak. Why didn't you run for governor in 2014? Where were you then? Maybe it's because you actually like the Sandoval agenda. And maybe, as it seems, it's you don't really want to provide any change to the Sandoval establishment agenda. The only thing is different is maybe a few small issues and the fact that you're registered and running as a different party. Okay? Folks, you got to really understand what is going on. All right? Now, speaking about Culinary Workers Union, it's a group that's heavily infested with immigrants. So my question to you is, believe it or not, what is your stance when it comes to illegal immigration? Now, you may say that obviously that you are not fighting against the current proposals to crack down against sanctuary cities. You might have not talked about it. But who are you deep down inside? Do you really want sanctuary cities? Well, let me see right here. Maybe you really do, because it benefits your donors. Maybe it benefits the Harry Reid agenda. Maybe the fact that you're not fighting against Sheriff Joe Lombardo, who it seems like he's shilling for sanctuary cities, according to Rob Lauer from 360 Daily Net. Again, this is absolutely, you got to understand who these people really are. Now, if you make the claim that you say, well, I don't want families to be torn apart, that's a good point. But you have to consider the American people. How can you create an employment structure to make sure that they are not a burden to wages? Can you at least do that? Can you at least build a system that if we have immigration, there's not corrupt policies and they don't become a significant problem to the American people, citizens? Can you stop the crony corruption that benefits from this massive immigration? Can you at least do that? Because I know some progressives are willing to do that. What about the fact that 25% of the students in Clark County Unified School District has a parent who's here illegally? Why should everyday people pay for it? Maybe you should raise taxes on gaming so that that can be used to pay for their services. Aren't Democrats all for taxing for the rich? But I guess a lot of them are really breaking their words. Now, I also want to look into the other issues. I also want to look into schools. What are your plans to do with schools? As far as I know, I don't think you seem to have any plans. You want to perpetuate the system. And my curiosity is, why can't we have a more flexible system? Maybe this thing of getting up early, going to school, cramming for exams, this neglectful system is probably not the solution. It needs some kind of alternative. What is your issue when it comes to planning? Are you going to promote more so-called sustainable development agendas that don't really solve the problem, like Southern Nevada Strong and Henderson Strong that Deborah March is supporting and promoting, and even Mark Menendo? That you're going to have light rail plans that are not going to do jack? How about we have an alternative sustainable or an infill development plan? What's your solution when it comes to outward expansion? All these cookie-cutter housing that's, on the other hand, making the problem worse. And all the times you've been in power, you've allowed all this sprawl to continue. So you're not addressing the other problem. And then, of course, what's the issue with taxes? You know, my concern about people like you is that you want to raise taxes. You're probably going to be Sandoval on steroids. You're going to raise it again. And of course, now we've got a different structure in the assembly. So that's just going to make things even worse. And Sandoval broke his promises, and doesn't seem like you're any different from Sandoval. And speaking about taxes, there's another issue we'll get later on. And then, what are your issues on income inequality? Do you even address income inequality? Democrats keep talking about it. But maybe you don't want to address it. Maybe you want to protect the wealthy special interests, but masquerading as a progressive, because that's what it seems according to you. Okay? Folks, you have to start having some common sense. You have to start expanding your mind. All right? Now, what about the housing sector? Steve, what are you doing about the fact that housing prices are overvalued? I told this at your face several weeks ago, and I'm going to keep doing it. And maybe we should hold you accountable if housing prices continue to get overvalued, interest rates rise, housing bubbles burst, the banking manipulation of putting foreclosures out of the market is gone, interest rates start to rise, we see more foreclosures, even though it doesn't have to be as bad as the last crisis. What are you going to do about it? This is the most important issue. I guess you really want these deals to happen. You want this process because it seems like the big banks that benefit from the process are backing you. Hey, folks, don't be so naive. We should hold you accountable. Now, speaking about that, speaking about all this stuff that's going on, all these horrible housing cycles, the Wall Street Federal Reserve manipulation, do you plan on to pass policies to prevent fraud, to prevent this kind of lending? Do you plan on to provide a state bank so where the people, the democratic people, can have a say on how the money supply works? Folks, you got to have to think about these issues. with all the smiley faces that he has, he's not going down on the really important issues. It seems like he's distracting you folks, and you have to really put this in consideration. All right? And by the way, this housing prices along with rents, this is a lot more effective managing that than raising the minimum wage, giving housing subsidies, people working extra hours to make ends meet. Perhaps that's what's exactly causing the problem. And by the way, speaking about the state, it's way worse from what I heard in Reno, Sparks, Washoe County. Folks, you got to start considering about what in the world is going on. And you know what? If the housing bubble bursts, we should hold you accountable for not addressing it when you were county commissioner. But by the way, it is likely that this housing market will burst. And when you're governor, it's going to be really, really awful. Now, one thing, it's going to show how rigged the Sandoval so-called economic recovery was. So it will prove that this guy was just happy face and talk to a large extent. But what it's also going to do to you, it's going to tank your approval numbers. It's going to put your career in jeopardy. I think you should think twice about running, actually. It could put you in a situation that you may be recalled. Okay? And you know what? Maybe I might submit a recall, and maybe I might run for governor. This is probably a good opportunity for me, believe it or not. But when the economic crash happens, what decisions are you going to make? You're probably going to make even worse decisions. You're probably going to raise the taxes even more. Property taxes, sales taxes are going to rise. You may even issue an income tax. Hey, you know what? Maybe you're on the path of taking our state to becoming more like the East Wing of California. Yay! Yippee! No, absolutely not. Disgusting. We're going to have to fight and make sure that that doesn't happen, folks. Okay? This is one of the things that you have to really keep in mind. Now, by the way, I just also wanted to point out. Now, yes, he has differences with Jerry Brown, depending on how he talks and how he handles things. Okay? But that does not mean that their goals and a lot of other things are not the same. Okay? So this is one of the things that you have to keep in mind. Now, speaking about other issues, let's talk about me personally, okay? I have long-term goals. I want to build master plan neighborhoods outside of the Las Vegas Valley, many of it which is federal land. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to get in my way? Hopefully not. And you should pretty much like them because it promotes a lot of economic growth. Now, again, speaking about the establishment, as it seems, the fact is that you, believe it or not, are really being promoted and pimped by the media. This is what helped you get all your fame and success from one position to another. And the media is going to continue to promote you, whether it's the Review Journal or the Sun or all these local news agencies, and even some like alternative ones like the Nevada Independent. Oh, please. You can see all their contributions. Even Deborah Marsh contributes to the Nevada Independent. And by the way, it doesn't surprise me that you and Deborah Marsh are, in fact, good friends. Okay? So the media is going to continue to pimp you up, but that's hopefully going to change because my YouTube channel and many others are growing, and we're going to take it down. But, again, like I said, if you screw up, sir, we're going to hold you accountable. And I'm going to work very, very hard to make sure that if you really do an effed up job, I'm going to make you regret of ever holding a position like that for the rest of your life. Believe me. You are going to really, really regret it. And if you win in 2020, Maybe this is a better opportunity to have a better candidate in 2024 to really, really, really provide efficient change. Now, here's the thing before I go, okay? From what I heard, Mr. Sisolak, you are, from people like Eddie Hamilton, that you are behind a lot of scandals. I believe you did something to some underage girl regarding Victoria's Secret. I don't know, about harassment. I don't know what exactly happened. I can't remember what Eddie Hamilton told me. But we should have an investigation of that. And not just an investigation of that, but possibly a lot of other scandals that Brian Sandoval might have done. This is an opportunity to really crack down and see what the hell is going on, okay? Because as far as I know, and I don't mean to start a war, but this is not looking pretty. And we better take action. We better stand up. And the bottom line is, your campaign contributions are not pretty. And this has got to change. And a real, whether if you're left and right, agrees that we have to get bad money out of this campaigning process, okay? So if you're on the left that's voting for him, keep this in mind, all right? So anyway, thank you guys so much for taking this time. Let me know what you guys think, and take it easy. We will see how this really turns out this year and next year, okay? And by the way, keep in mind, just because if the results go terrible does not mean it's game over. Because remember, we are the ones that are really in power. And we also have an effect on assembly races as well. Take care.